Over the first 5 days Bernie Sanders spent on the campaign trail for Hillary Clinton, over 5 days, he did 14 events for her.
So last night, audio came out of the stage conversation between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders after the debate, where Elizabeth Warren refused to shake Bernie's hand, and they had a conversation. It wasn't quite clear at the time what was said, but now we know what was said. I'm going to show you what was said, and then I'm going to break down both cases. We're going to look at the entire context of this entire thing, and based on that, come to a conclusion about who is lying and who isn't. So first, here is the conversation that they had after the debate.
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
What?
I think you called me a liar on national TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. You called me, you told me. All right, let's not do it now.
I don't want to get in the middle of it. I just want to say hi, Bernie.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, before I go any further, I just want to say Tom Steyer there kind of seems like a nice guy. I've been really hard on Tom Steyer on Twitter because why is this billionaire in this discussion? I mean, he bought his way into this race 100%. But he seems like an okay dude. That said, let's put that aside. So looking at what was said here, you can look at this two different ways when it comes to Elizabeth Warren. So you can think that Bernie said this and she's angry about it. Actually, there's more than two ways you can think about this. So you can think that Warren heard that Bernie said, no, a woman can't win in a private conversation. Think they really had that conversation, looking at the entire context I will give you in a second. You can think that Warren misheard the conversation. That's a possibility. She misremembered what was actually said in the room. Or you can think that she is completely lying, and this is 2 weeks before the Iowa caucus, where her campaign is in free fall. And for whatever reason, this conversation never came up in private before now. Only comes up now when it's leaked to the press publicly. And then she herself brings it up on stage. We're talking about it was leaked a day before the debate. Then she brings it up on stage while her campaign is in free fall, while Iowa's about to vote. So I would think if Bernie had actually said this, then they would have had a conversation about it at the time. She would have stopped and said, wait, did you just say that a woman can't be president? Did you just tell me that while we were discussing our different runs for president? Like, it would have been a huge conversation between the two at the time. They would have hashed it out at the time. But apparently, it's coming up now. So let's compare records, because I think this is the context that really matters here. Let's look at what Bernie Sanders has said and done in the past on this issue and compare Elizabeth Warren and what she has said and done. So on the one side here, you have Bernie Sanders, who, in 2015 tried to get Elizabeth Warren to run for president. I mean, this context is maybe the most important context out of everything. The only reason Bernie Sanders ran against Hillary Clinton in 2016 is because Elizabeth Warren didn't want to run against Hillary Clinton. Bernie tried to get Warren to run. This was well reported. So why would he do that if he didn't think that Warren could win? Now, on top of that, let's get to a couple of videos here. I played these in a previous segment covering this similar story, but I want to kind of put everything into one video now. So this is Bernie saying that a woman can be president. This is Bernie back in the 1980s in two separate cases.
The real issue is not whether you're black or white, whether you're a woman or a man. In my view, a woman could be elected president of the United States. The real issue is, whose side are you on? Are you on the side of workers and poor people, or are you on the side of big money and the corporations?
Has there ever been a woman mayor?
Not in Burlington. There have been, and there are women mayors all over the country. There's a woman governor in this state. Who can tell me the name of our governor? Yeah?
I think it's Madeline Kunin.
That's right, Madeline Kunin. And Governor Kunin is a woman. And there are other, not a whole lot, I think there's one other woman governor. There are the mayor of San Francisco is a woman, and there are many women mayors, but not enough. And one of the very important things, and I hope that all the girls in this class understand, that you, just as much as the boys, have a right to become president. There's not been a woman president, although there was a woman who was giving thought running for president this time, from Colorado, a woman named Representative Schroeder, gave some thought. So I hope that the girls will think that they have the right to be involved in politics quite as much as the boys do. It's beginning to change, but it's not changing fast enough.
All right, so right there, two cases, Bernie back in the 1980s discussing how a woman can be president, and that he's encouraging young girls there to get into politics. Now, it's also important to say, because I forgot to mention this earlier, Bernie Sanders has already said that they discussed that Trump would weaponize sexism. So in their private conversation, Trump and Warren 2 years ago, discussing the pros and cons of each of their potential candidacies, they discussed, well, Warren, if you're the nominee, you're going to have to deal with Trump weaponizing sexism. And I imagine it came up, Bernie, if you're the nominee, you got to deal with Trump calling you crazy Bernie and, calling you a socialist and all that. So they discussed the pros and cons of each candidacy. Bernie Sanders is saying, I did not say a woman couldn't be president. That would be crazy for me to say after I told Elizabeth Warren, after I tried to get Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016, after he has, videos like this from the 1980s encouraging women to get involved in politics and discussing how a woman can be president. And on top of all that, Bernie Sanders campaigned his heart out for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And that's not me saying this. That's Rachel Maddow saying this.
There was this lingering question at the end of the Democratic primary as to whether or not Bernie Sanders really meant it when he endorsed Hillary Clinton, whether he really meant it when he said he would work his heart out all over the country to get her elected. Well, he's been working his heart out. It's true. He started campaigning for Clinton really in earnest, basically as a full-time gig a couple of weeks ago. He appears really to be flooring it for Hillary Clinton. Over the first 5 days Bernie Sanders spent on the campaign trail for Hillary Clinton, over 5 days, he did 14 events for her. Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Maine, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, 14 events in 5 days. Yesterday and today and tonight, he's stumping for Hillary Clinton in Colorado. On Wednesday, he's going to Nevada for her. Tomorrow, though, he is spending all day and all night in Red State, Arizona. Bernie Sanders doing a rally for Clinton tomorrow in Flagstaff at 2:30. Then he's doing another rally for Clinton in Tucson at 7.
All right, so why would Bernie have done all that work if he didn't think that Hillary Clinton could win? You don't go all over the country. So Bernie actually campaigned more than anybody else for Hillary Clinton except her own family. So this from Jordan Sheridan. Reality check. While corporate media and Hillary Clinton's team keep pushing the line that Bernie Sanders, quote, didn't do enough to elect Clinton, 2008, Clinton did only 10 rallies on her own for Obama and 2 joint events. 2016, Bernie did 37 rallies on his own for Clinton and 3 joint events. And on top of Rachel Maddow talking about this, Hillary Clinton herself, a few days before the election in 2016, thanked Bernie Sanders for all his work.
I really want to thank my friend Bernie Sanders for everything that he has done. I got to serve with Bernie. We were colleagues in the Senate. I saw firsthand his commitment to the people of Vermont and to the values that have guided his life. And when we faced each other in the primary, here's what I was so proud about. We ran a campaign on the issues that matter to the American people. I think because of that campaign, we were able to raise a lot of the issues that you heard Bernie talking about to the level that they are part of this presidential campaign. And they will be part of our agenda after January 20th, Bernie. And I've got to say, too, this election's been a lot more fun now that we're on the same side. And I want to thank Bernie for everything he's done. He's crisscrossing our country, energizing people, getting folks off the sidelines and engaged in politics. And there's no question that his efforts are paying off. And what he said at the beginning of his remarks is absolutely true. My name may be on the ballot, but it is not about me. It's not about my opponent. It's not about Bernie. It's not about David or Deborah. It is about you and your lives and what we're going to do together.
So Hillary Clinton herself thanked Bernie Sanders for all his work. And as I showed you, it's well documented how much work Bernie Sanders put in to get Hillary Clinton elected. Why would he do all this if he didn't think that she could win? It's absurd. And on top of that, as Bernie mentioned on the debate stage, Hillary beat Trump by 3 million votes. So yes, she lost the election because of the Electoral College, but she beat Trump with 3 million more votes. So clearly a woman can win. As Bernie said on the debate stage, it would be crazy for anybody to think that a woman couldn't win after Hillary beat Trump by 3 million votes. Now, on the other side of the conversation, let's look at Elizabeth Warren's history. So, look, because I've been a supporter of Elizabeth Warren on policy, there was never really a reason to focus on this aspect of her political career. But now that we're having this conversation and we're looking at the credibility of Bernie versus Warren, as Nathan J. Robinson writes in Current Affairs, there is a credibility gap. So these are all the lies that Elizabeth Warren has told. Saying she opposed fancy wine fundraisers, even though she held them herself. Raising money using exactly the methods she now denounces as corrupting, and falsely claiming her presidential campaign was 100% grassroots funded when it carried over millions from a Senate campaign funded by the wealthy. Claiming her father was a janitor when her brother insists he wasn't. Pretending to have been representing the interests of consumers when she was in fact working for corporations who were contesting the legal claims of retired coal miners, women sickened by faulty breast implants, rural cooperatives, and dead NASCAR drivers. The New York Times and the Washington Post both investigated her claims and documented ways in which her campaign had manipulated the truth, claiming for years on government forums that her race was American Indian. When a mother accused her of having sent her children to private schools, insisting her children, quote, went to public schools when one of them actually did go to private school. Claiming to support Medicare for all, but then, when criticized for it, backing off it completely and promising to pass something else. Claiming that only billionaires would pay more under her Medicare for all plan when that wasn't true. Allowing Harvard Law School to claim her as its first woman of color. Claiming that a DNA test supported the contention that she was an American Indian, then deleting the evidence she had done this. Claiming to have been the first nursing mother to take the New Jersey bar, then when asked for evidence, saying that she, quote, was making a point about the very serious challenges she faced. Telling a dubious story about her grandparents having to elope because of discrimination. Saying she was not political in her younger years when she was, in fact, a die-hard conservative Republican. Claiming recipes she copied word for word from the New York Times were ancient Cherokee family dishes. Pretending that she released a health care plan that did not raise middle-class taxes. Claiming to have, quote, created the intellectual foundation for Occupy Wall Street. And criticizing the revolving door between the banking sector and government despite personally putting bankers in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So, that's Elizabeth Warren's record of distorting reality for political benefit. You look at these two candidates. Bernie Sanders has a 40-year record of saying the same thing. I mean, it's become almost a joke at this point because you can go back to the 1980s, the 1990s. Bernie is saying almost the exact same thing then as he is saying now. His focus on income inequality, on wealth inequality, on discrimination. Go down the list. He's been fighting for the same thing for 40 years. He has always been this authentically himself. Elizabeth Warren, she is your standard politician. I mean, I'm not trying to paint her as somebody who is worse than the norm. No. This is what politicians normally do. They distort the truth, they distort reality, distort their record to try and make them look better politically. That's what they do. Elizabeth Warren is just part of that crowd. So when looking at these two candidates and their record on this issue, who do you actually trust here? Looking at all the context. Like, I think it's obvious, but judge for yourself.